Sports Podcast.
On today's episode, well, we've had a lot of football over the last couple of weeks. We've had the Premiership restarting. I still call it the Premiership. I know it's the Premier League. It was the Premiership, right? I had a Premiership sticker book.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure it changed in like 2005 or something.
Yeah, Barclays Premiership, and then it went to the Premier League, didn't it?
Yeah.
Premiership was the perfect era of football. Sorry, that's a huge digress. Go on.
The Carling Premiership for me is the ultimate, yeah.
Yeah, that probably was for me as well. I think that was my sticker book, was the Carling years with my shinies. Peter Schmeichel probably last featured in my sticker book, so that's what we're harking back to.
Yeah, we're aging ourselves here.
Yeah. Also, on today's podcast, a little bit of golf coverage. The golf season technically is now finished.
Yeah, I'm surprised we're talking about golf.
It's not a major, is it?
It's not a major, but it is the culmination and the final of the USPGA Tour.
I've seen quite a lot. I've seen a lot of chat about this point system or whatever.
We'll talk about it. We'll save it for the pod.
This is the pod.
We'll also cover a little bit of the F1. There's loads going on in F1. We spoke about it as a procession earlier in the year. Flipped on its head now, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But let's get into the football first. So what did we catch at the weekend? Where should we start? Should we start with the first game of the weekend? Probably the most controversial game of the weekend, with Arsenal at home to Brighton.
Yeah, we can start there. There are a couple of things in that, weren't there? I think, like, from a football perspective, I think Arsenal looked a bit thin on the ground squad-wise. Like, I hadn't really noticed it until the second half of that game. And I looked at the bench. I was like, they haven't really made a change. Maybe they get some fresh legs on now. I looked at the bench and I was like, God, there's not a lot there. It's like Martinelli and nothing else. I was surprised by that.
Yeah, we've spoken about it in the past about Arsenal's forwards, that they're weak on that side. And it was maybe not a surprise, actually, that they brought in Raheem Sterling. You notice how thin on the ground they are when they're making a last-ditch recruitment like Raheem Sterling. I think a better option than Martinelli, probably. If he gets on form, he is an absolute troublemaker.
He is. He also brings a bit of know-how to that team and winning games and consistently, which, like you mentioned, look at their bench. It's not like they're missing a load of players. Jesus is probably injured. Their new signing just broke his arm in training on day one as well, which isn't a great start. But I was surprised they didn't do more in the transfer window. Arsenal, I just think the way that City have dominated the years, just having unbelievable squad depth, which Arsenal haven't really prioritised in the same way. But I think Sterling will probably be a pretty shrewd acquisition for Arsenal if he refines some form of before Chelsea.
Got rid of, knowing that he was going to go, Ramsdale, and brought in Neto. They've done Calafiori, which is a great acquisition for the defence, and really strong back. I mean, they've got 7 or 8 very strong defenders that all would make their case. I didn't see anyone scoring against Arsenal all year, to be honest, until they got Pleasant off. But and then Marino in midfield, like you said. So Thomas Partey's going to have to play a little bit longer, but actually I thought he was quite solid at the weekend. But it is up front that they are thin, really thin on the ground. You've got Saka in the front 3, really, that is a first name on the team sheet, but Jesus you can't rely on. He's not a match winner. He'll get goals, but he's not winning games like Haaland is. I mean, no one's doing it like Haaland, obviously, but you can't rely on him for 20 plus goals a season. So definitely thin on the ground. So I think the main talking point from the game is probably the sending off, the 2 yellows. First yellow, bit innocuous. Second yellow, I've got a very biased view, obviously, but I think in the context of where Declan Rice kicked the ball or nudged the ball away, he didn't kick it 100 yards away, didn't kick it into the stands.
I've got a contrasting view now. So earlier on when we spoke about it, I did agree with that, and I went back and watched it just to like prep. And I think Declan Rice knows exactly what he's doing. I think he nudges it away, knowing that he's going to get a tackle that could have been a red card for them. I think it's a bit of gamesmanship that hasn't paid off for him. I think he kicks it full well knowing that he's going to get kicked.
They're both playing the game.
Yeah,
Veltman is trying to kick him because he can see that he's going to nudge the ball away.
Yeah.
So he's trying to draw attention to the fact that he hasn't nudged the ball very far, but he's clearly nudged the ball because I was just about to kick it.
Yeah.
And Rice has nudged the ball away because he can see Veltman out the corner of his eye cocking his leg back, and he's thinking, right, if he kicks me here, I'm going to get him sent off. So they're both trying to do the same thing to each other, and it went Brighton's way and not Arsenal's in that instance.
And I think any other day it's going any other team's way as well. Like it could have gone either way. And yeah, he did commit an offence at the end of the day, so you can't be annoyed that he did commit an offence, because he did. But it's cost Arsenal. It's cost him because he's now going to have a ban. But it's also cost Arsenal because he'll be banned, and also because they've dropped the points, and they have dropped points. Yeah, exactly.
I think it's a bit of a shame because I wanted to see how good Brighton actually were. Like first few games, I thought they looked really sharp. Good win against United. Probably should have drew that with that disallowed goal, which was a little bit silly.
I think he still got to see it. I think he definitely still got to see it.
Yeah,
Brighton, I think it takes a good team and good tactics to be able to exploit the extra man.
Yeah, he is a very intelligent manager. You can see that he doesn't just have one system that suits every team he plays. He mixes it based off who's playing, which we're seeing that more and more now, which we didn't really see before. But yeah, Brighton looks sharp. I think Minter looks very scary. Like he looks like he'd be a very good signing from Newcastle, and Pedro looks like he's put on about 20 pounds of muscle in the summer. So yeah, I think they'll be quite a frightening team to play this year.
I think he's going into a lot of people's FPL teams, Pedro.
Yeah, he's still quite cheap, isn't he? He's still only 5.5 million, and he seems to be the starter. The thing with them is they've got a lot of players.
They do,
and you don't often these days see a team be successful with lots of players. Like even at City's level, like Guardiola doesn't like having lots of players, and there's two reasons for that. One is that players who aren't playing aren't good to have around the place, and the second reason is continuity, like the flow of the team. And if this new Brighton manager, I can't remember his name, but if he can find a way to utilize the size of the squad that he has in an effective way by chopping people in and out in terms of playing different systems and still getting results, I'll be really impressed.
I see it slightly different. I think it's different when you have a big squad with big disparity between your best players and your worst players. But I think Brighton are very much, they have like two players position who are fighting for a shirt. I don't think there's players that can't step in and do a job. Like if you look at their bench, it's strong. Like you could make 6 or 7 changes and you'd still think Brighton look quite good. I think having competition is healthy. I think having too big of a squad like Chelsea is a problem. But I think Brighton are just about on that fine line of having squad depth rather than too many bodies.
It's, I mean, in the scheme of it's still a bit too early to talk about the table and the title and stuff like that. But it does feel like, there's not going to be many. The margins for error are going to be fine. So,
I feel like I think Arsenal and City's standard has stayed the same. I think Arsenal raised their standard, but the level below, I think, they've closed the gap. And I'd say Villa, Liverpool, Brighton, I think Newcastle have potential to this season. I thought Tottenham would, but really glad to see them drop points at the weekend. But there are other teams there that I thought had bridged the gap, but actually there's a few of them that have, and some of the other ones not yet showing it. Go on, James. Smirk.
The fact you just included Liverpool in that made me laugh. That's all.
Well, they have bridged the gap to the top 2.
Liverpool would have been chasing the title last year if it wasn't for the 10 injuries in the last 6 games or whatever they got that ruined their season.
Woulda, shoulda, coulda.
Yeah, I think
everyone deals with that at different times in the year.
I think Liverpool, City, and Arsenal are the top 3, the best 3 sides.
You're right. I think Liverpool have bridged the gap to those top 2 and our top 3.
And I actually think City look better. I just think I think De Bruyne is a huge factor,
Yeah,
and he looks ready to play, doesn't he?
I think the City, the scary thing is with City is they're missing Rodri, and they look even better. Like Haaland is just a freak at the moment. He looks bigger, he looks stronger, he looks faster, and obviously he had the summer off, so he's come back in peak physical fitness.
Same with Salah. Him and Salah are like the same, aren't they?
Yeah, I just couldn't believe, like, if you watch that Man City, every time he got a through ball, you're thinking, why are you playing a high line? You're not going to catch him. You're not going to push him off the ball. You're going to concede. But yeah, City looked very sharp from the off. I think the one concern for me with City is Foden's still ill. And, Foden shined last year in sort of picking up for KDB. So where do they slot him in this year? How does he have the same sort of impact? That's his only headache. The rest look great. Rico Lewis looks unbelievable at fullback. He's like 19. Yeah, it could be another City Storefest if we're not careful.
Yeah, they look very robotic, and like
it could be. Yeah, go on, Joe.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, the Foden thing feels managed, though. It feels like they're probably not playing him, so he doesn't have to go and play for England, and he can have a decent break and then come back.
100%. Right. We've seen it with England since. God rest his soul, Sven-Göran Eriksson. But since Sven-Göran Eriksson, that was the start. That was the start of the Man United players with injuries not going to England. Like tiny knocks, and they'd play the next Man United game. They played the last one. They wouldn't play the international friendlies or games, and then they'd be back. I feel like that has just been that's just been a constant with England.
Yeah, I actually have like no problem with it. And I think it's a smart thing to do. It's easier for the players at the bigger clubs to do it because they're not desperate for their place. So those players who are playing for smaller clubs trying to get into the England setup, they feel like they have to go, but the players at the Cities and the Arsenals can miss a squad or two, and it's not going to affect their chances of getting into the next one.
Yeah, definitely. The funniest story was definitely Everton versus Bournemouth. I don't know if you were watching that game at all.
Yeah. I didn't watch it, no, but yeah, I was tracking it.
I couldn't believe I was like, Everton were just in cruise control for 85 minutes of the game.
Well, I'll tell you why I was monitoring it, because I had Tchaikovsky as a defender in my FPL team. So he was collecting the points, and then all of a sudden my team points dropped down. So I went onto the game and saw that the goals started going in.
Yeah, that's exactly why I put it on, because I had Semenyo in my team. I was like, well, how is it? The Everton, and then he pops up with a goal. Like, yeah, gets in. But yeah, I think Everton are in huge trouble. They've got such a nice run of fixtures as well. If they don't pick up, they could be buried before they even get their feet this season.
I just think they look worse. I just think they look worse than they did last season. On paper, I mean, like, I haven't really watched them. I've seen the results and the highlights, but I mean, they're two midfielders. So they had Onana last season. He's gone, and great. They've basically swapped him with Iribunum from Villa, and they've got Idrissa Gueye in there, who must be 37 now, 36 or 37. That is not a Premier League midfield.
No, but I do think so. I feel like there's flashes of goodness in them. Like Ndai signed from, was it Marseille? Yeah. He looked great on Saturday. I thought he looked really sharp. And if Calvert-Lewin can start scoring, like, they have good players. I just don't know if it's a managerial change they need, if it's a style change. Like Sean Dyche is always going to be this two banks of four, direct football, defensively solid. And if he's not defensively solid, what is he?
Yeah,
that's my concern.
I've got a foreshadowing of Moisey turning up there halfway through the year.
Is it? Yeah.
At Everton.
Yeah.
Everton have got huge problems.
I don't think
if they don't stay up this season with their new ground that is being built.
It'd be so typical, wouldn't it?
The new ground is being built for $500 million at the moment, and it's going to probably cost more. There is not a chance that they're going to recoup the revenue for it. They're going to be in such financial hardship for the long term.
They're having difficulties securing a takeover as well, aren't they? So they would be. I mean, it might make them a more.
It'll be a purchase for somebody.
Yeah, it might make them a more favourable investment for somebody if they went down. You get them cheap. So.
Yeah, the price just dropped. Whoever the current owner is will just be shafted. Everton aren't going to go out of business. Someone will always buy them.
Another Hollywood purchase.
Well, I don't know, because if you're buying the club, you're now going to have to inherit a lot of the debt and the stadium and stuff. I don't think it's going to have to be some person with serious money.
Yeah.
Mm.
And there's not that many people with that money that are willing to throw it into football clubs anymore.
But yeah, in terms of like where they are right now, it does. I don't think it looks good for them. Like, what's going on with that? Like, then they've signed this centre half from Leon, and he hasn't played, has he?
I know. I picked him for my team before the deadline, and I was like, oh, he's 6'5". He scores goals. He's defensively solid. I was like, oh, he's going to play. I think
Why is he playing Michael Keane?
I don't know. He's playing. I think he's played like one game fully, and they've only conceded one goal in that time. He scored. So I've got no idea why he's not been started. Is it Jake O'Brien, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, O'Brien. Yeah. So yeah, I'm a bit worried about them actually. Like, usually they're kind of struggling, and you're thinking, oh, they got enough there. They'll pick up enough points. I'm not convinced of that this season, and I think like Ipswich look like they've.
Yeah. Took the words out of my mouth. The Ipswich team, they look like a mid-table team already.
Yeah.
They look super sharp, and they're not the relegation fodder of the past.
No, I think there's enough points there for them. So could be that somebody else is in a bit of trouble.
I hope so. We will see in 35 game weeks time.
Yeah. One team who is, or two teams who are opposite ends of the spectrum. Manchester United looked dire again. And Liverpool literally picked them apart, and Arne Slott went on TV afterwards and told everyone exactly how he did it, which is just shows up how much of a problem United have.
I just feel like how many of these is there going to be? Like, I feel like what I was going to say was, it's the ultimate.
How many? What do you mean? How many of what? How many of what?
So I was going to say, like, this is like the ultimate humiliation for United, but then I stopped myself because there's been so many of them.
I thought you were talking about the managers, because they're not settling. Like Ten Hag, we spoke about it at the end of the season, kept his job by the skin of the FA Cup win, and he's now going to stay in it, and he's now blaming the signings that he brought in. Obviously he hooked Casemiro off at half time, so he's putting a lot of blame on him. But he blamed it on the new signings. However, it wasn't the new signings, it was the existing signings that had no idea what they were doing either.
It's not about the players.
It's not about players. Nothing that's happening there is about players. Like, Casemiro's being scapegoated, really. And I know it's funny, like, it's genuinely hilarious, but it's not about him. Like, Mainu got robbed for the third goal as well. Like, it's not about individual players. It's about what they're being asked to do in areas of the pitch that makes no sense, and they're wide open as well. It's all structural for me, and that goes back to the manager, doesn't it?
But like you mentioned, this isn't the first. They lost 7-0 to Liverpool.
Yeah.
He kept his job. I just don't understand why United fans, why is anyone expecting anything else? Like, he's shifted slightly his mentality with the way they press, but they are so wide open. No one knows what they're doing. Like, you've got Casemiro running around at, he's 32 years old. Yeah, he's got nous. He should be able to play through a midfield in the Premier League.
Yeah,
cover like the way they're trying to play is always going to stitch up their centre midfield players.
Yeah, they're always going to. Whoever plays in there is going to look ridiculous.
They've signed Sagarte, and Garte's going to be great. He's not played a pre-season game. It's going to take him a few weeks to get fit. Then you're going to chuck him in that system. He's going to make it look horrendous, and they're going to go, another rubbish signing.
It's that sort of role for United where I think it's not he's not going to be a first season fix. It'll take him into next season to find his feet in the Prem. The Prem is very different.
It's not a player fix. Like, people Ten Hag keeps saying about time and stuff, and we've won trophies, but Slott's been in Liverpool for 4 months, and you know exactly how they want to play. You can see their style. You can see what they're trying to do. It's taken.
I say that. I do think though that they've brought in someone that can just keep going with the status quo. I know he's making adjustments, but I also do think like this still does look like a Klopp side.
It does because of the press, but the way they build up is completely different. And those things don't happen if you don't have a good coach. Like, people say, they still play with a 4-3-3, 4-2-3, or whatever you want to call it. It's just a Klopp side. Like, it's complete. Like, the whole pattern of play is pretty much different. And he's had 3 Premier League games, a pre-season, and every player looks like they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think he had a good platform, and
players.
Obviously there's good players there. And actually, the way he's asking them to play now is slightly easier than Klopp was asking them to as well. Because you don't have all this space to cover, and it's not like this constant high intensity football. And the passes that he's asking them to make are easier to make as well. Klopp was all about switching the play often. Like Van Dijk, there's a big change there in how he's moving the ball. He's kind of punching it through the lines rather than switching it with big raking passes. So, yeah, I think. But James, you're absolutely right. Like, you don't do that. You don't make those tweaks if you're not a world-class coach, and you don't do it with players who you don't know. If you're not a world-class coach, well, he's gone in there and just done it with the players that are already there. Did they sign anyone? They signed Chiesa, didn't they?
He hasn't played. Yeah, I think them. Obviously, I do like watching Liverpool and stuff, so maybe a little bit biased. But I feel like watching Slots. It's not just watching them pass the ball for the sake of it. Every pass seems to have a reason. They're putting something out of play. Like, possession football has definitely overtaken like English football. Everyone's trying to play possession, but there's a difference between like passing for passing's sake and pulling a team apart. And Man United were pulled apart. Their teams were made to run for 45 minutes, and they came out looking goosed in the second half. And they were never really going to get back in the game. Like, I just think it's so impressive what he's done. Yes, 3 games.
I will caveat slightly by saying I think they've had a kind.
Nice. 3 games, yeah, we'll see. But United away has always historically been a bit of a prickly fixture for Liverpool, and Klopp maybe gave them a bit too much respect. And Slott went, this isn't that difficult. We're going to do this, this, and this, and made them look pretty silly. So yeah, I mean, like I say, it's only 3 games in, and unfortunately, we have an international break now, which breaks up. So yeah, we'll come back in a couple of weeks' time.
I don't know if this is the worst one or if the next one is the worst one, but I hate these 2 international.
Is the next one November?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
The only reason, and we'll touch on this quickly, that I'm excited to watch this one is to see what Lee Carsley does, because him and the under-21s, like we mentioned, they were playing like liquid football when he's picked a couple of his under-21 cronies as well. So we'll see how they get on.
Yeah, I was going to say the squad's been announced, hasn't it? And a few names that I definitely didn't recognise.
Angel Gomez sat at the pivot for him in the under-21, and he was he's just picked him straight away for the first team squad. So I'm excited to see that.
Any other football to talk about then from the weekend?
Just Chesterfield let me down again, but apart from that, no, we're all good.
Okay, you're in the big leagues now. It's going to happen.
Well, we were so first game 1-0 up, should have won the game. Second game 1-5-0, thinking this is easy. Second game 1-0 up to 10 men, conceded with 3 minutes to go, and then on Saturday we hit the post 4 times, had a goal disallowed, had 2 shots against us and lost 1-0 or something like that. So it's just one of them games and one of them weekends. But yeah, football ruins my weekend when we lose.
Can't have the highs without the lows, mate.
Correct.
Over to Formula One.
Oh, here we go. Formula One. Monza,
the world's fastest track.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's officially true, but it's very fast track.
It actually is. I think 19 of the fastest 20 Grand Prix in history have been at Monza in terms of like time taken. So yeah, it's just like 75% full throttle. They're just flying around. And Friday we got our first glimpse of Antonelli. And he put his car in the wall after about 10 minutes.
Yeah, speaking of full throttle, well, he put his car in the wall on his second hot lap. On his first hot lap, he absolutely smoked everyone on the grid.
Who's this? Who's he driving for?
17-year-old.
Kimi Antonelli driving for Mercedes. He's replacing Lewis Hamilton next season. Okay. He's been their junior driver. He just pushed all of the limits and obviously pushed too hard and then crashed George Russell's car. So he was in George Russell's car. So I don't think George was very happy about it. Compromised his practice a little bit, but in the race he just cost himself. But yeah, into the race then. So what were the other talking points pre-race? I think probably we were saying Ferrari and McLaren's, but specifically McLaren's were looking fastest. We'd spoken, it'd been the summer break, but from the last Grand Prix, obviously McLaren were closing the gap on Red Bull, and we were talking about how it was Sergio Perez that was costing Red Bull finishing between 7th and 12th in every Grand Prix, whilst the McLarens were finishing in the top 4 in each race. And it was a little bit of a return to that again, with Sergio Perez finishing in 8th. He kept his job over the summer break. I didn't see that happening, but we had Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri starting on the front row for McLaren with a lockout, and then the Ferraris and George Russell behind them. but McLaren threw it away.
Yeah, you covered a lot there. So Saturday, I actually think the fastest car was probably McLaren and Mercedes, like in terms of qualifying pace. In Q1 and Q2, Hamilton and Russell both looked sharp. And if you see the way that Hamilton spoke after Q3, like I think he was really quite annoyed he didn't put it on the front row. But yeah, McLaren have had a rocket ship of a car for like 3 weeks now. So the McLarens and the Ferraris and the Mercedes were what I was expecting to fight out. I think the Red Bull's been massively struggling for the last couple of races. So yeah, the way they qualified 8th and 7th for Verstappen and Perez is like almost unheard of over the last 3 years. And then the start of the race highlighted Norris's problem again. Like he just can't start Grand Prix for whatever reason. Like he's now, I think he's 1 from 5 converting a pole position to race win. And he got pipped by his teammate on like the 3rd or 4th corner.
Yeah, 4th corner. And he held it for the 1st corner, and I thought he was going to be okay. I didn't think Piastri was going to make a move on him.
He is a pure racer. Like I think people underestimate him because he's young, but like his manager's Mark Webber, who went through this whole thing with Vettel when he was here, and he's not going to let Piastri do the same thing. Like they have this whole papaya rules they were talking about in team orders, which, you know, if you're a McLaren fan and you're a Lando Norris fan, like you would be prioritizing Lando Norris. Like he's 40, 50 points off. Verstappen has a faster car. You'd just be expecting, you know, McLaren to go, right, Norris, we're going to give you as many wins as we can. Piastri will defend. He'll hold people up. That's just not what they've done, weirdly enough. So, yeah.
So the difference would have been, so if Norris had have won the last Grand Prix, and if he'd have taken this position too, he would have been only 18 points behind Max going into the next race.
Yeah.
But he's not. He's 40, 50 points behind now because they've said we don't have a number 1 and number 2 driver. We've got 2 number 1 drivers.
But there's 2 ways of looking at it. I think the not playing team orders hurt them. But I think if you look at the way they went out, McLaren were never really aiming to one stop, which is what happened to be the quickest strategy. Like they were just putting in laps that were far too quick and their tyres were dying off. So they had to pit twice. Whereas Leclerc and Sainz sort of went, all right, we're not going to catch them on a two stop. They're too much faster than us. We'll do one. We'll protect our tyres and take that track position. And we're never really going to catch them. Like Leclerc drove really well. And just feels like, you know, when Ferrari's at Monza, they just turn their engine up a little bit, you know, take a bit of a risk, and they go, right, this is where we really want to win. And yeah, paid off for them.
Yeah, they were without fault over the race.
Unusual for a Ferrari strategy.
I was going to say, which we've not been able to say that since Bonatti onwards. We've not really been able to say that about Ferrari. They kind of are known for their strategic and tactical mistakes in Grand Prix. But yeah, they put it together. Although still 2 McLarens on the podium has resulted in McLaren just being how far behind now? 8 points behind in the constructors.
I think if they don't sort out some sort of team orders, though, they're going to throw away this World Drive Championship.
They could win the drivers. They could win the drivers and the constructors. They're definitely winning the constructors because Red Bull haven't got rid of Perez and brought someone in that can finish in the top 5 in every race. If they did that, they'd have it solved.
Yeah, this Perez one is strange because, you know, Verstappen was struggling in that Red Bull today, and Perez wasn't that far behind him. Like I feel like they had the same struggles this weekend. And you know, we're only halfway through the season. Like a lot of development can be done between now and then. It's just how much does Red Bull pour into this, because they thought they had it covered and they probably stopped developing as much and looking towards 2026. If they want to get back in the race, I think they probably can.
I was going to ask what has happened for McLaren, but actually there's been at least one McLaren on the podium since Japan.
Yeah.
So maybe the question is more what's happened to Red Bull.
It all sort of coincided with Newey. It's not Newey, but it all coincided at the same time with Newey leaving.
The allegations around Christian Horner, Jos Verstappen, asking for Horner to leave.
Well, you think so? They're not all in. Is that what you think?
There's a lot of unrest in there, and I feel like it's going to be part of that. They're also probably looking ahead, like they thought they probably had this championship tied up. Like there was like 3 or 4 different winners in 3 or 4 weeks, which is probably great if you're number one because no one's going to catch you because no one's winning every week.
Well, they were qualifying 0.8 seconds ahead of the nearest competition, and now they're qualifying 0.5 seconds behind. So there's been a significant swing too. So in terms of the teams have been bringing upgrades to races, but it seems like several of the teams also had to do some downgrades on their cars when they had this this braking. Is it T-bar, James? What's it called?
Oh, so the braking system. So when you're driving a Formula One car, you can move the brake bias like back to front. But I think Red Bull were also moving it from side to side. So they put more balance on one side of the car, whatever corner they were doing in, which they didn't get told off for, but they just basically FIA tightened the rule that said you can't do that. So they had to stop doing it. I don't think they were probably the only one doing it, but they probably were doing it better than anybody else.
Which has subsequently meant that's what I mean in terms of the downgrade on their car. They've had to remove that. They're also playing around with their floor a little bit, and it seems like there's a couple of temps that they're losing with either their new floor or their old floor in terms of downforce. So there's a lot of tweaks like that you can make. And
I'd also say like naturally, like the way that Formula One cycles work, like at the start, there's usually like a big disparity, and you can only get so good, and the other teams are always going to catch up slowly and slowly and slowly, which is what's happened. But McLaren have actually overtaken Red Bull, and they've got themselves a rocket ship. They just need to have a driver with a bit more of a cool head on his shoulders, and I think he'll win by a mile.
The biggest problem?
Lando is huge. It's a huge problem at the moment. I think everyone's sort of aware of it as well. Like he's not starting well. He's not making great comments in the press as well. Like he's falling out with his teammate. I think he's made this massive.
He's done this massive deal. He's signed on till 2028. Is it, James, that he signed on till last year?
I mean, I'm not surprised. He knew they were building a rocket ship, but it's more the fact that he thinks he's a number one driver, and they've probably not told that. They actually come out and say we have 2 number ones, which is Lando needs a Perez or a Bottas that will just support him because he can't beat his teammate at the moment, let alone the other 18 drivers.
Well, he can beat his teammate in terms of qualifying speed.
Yeah, great qualifier, no doubt. But he's got a problem starting.
So they need to fix that. Like Verstappen's starting is incredible. They've got the same response time. So their response times are the same. Piastri and Norris's response times are the same, 0.21 seconds. But it's that engagement with the car is just not
conviction?
There. Yeah, I think it's more mental than it is technical. Like I think the longer it goes on, the more he's in the car, the lights are going down. I'm going to mess this up again, and it's going to get more and more in his head, and he'll need some serious sports psychologists to help him out with that. But yeah, I think the only other story of note was there was a little bit of stick for Hamilton's qualifying pace dropping off, and whether Ferrari would be concerned that they're getting an aging driver that's struggling to qualify. But Fred Vasseur just said he wins, and we'd rather him be first on a Sunday than first on a Saturday. So yeah, excited for him in Red. Yeah.
How many races left? It's pretty exciting now, right?
Yeah, it's good.
Exciting now. Yeah.
Halfway through the season, I think. So summer break's usually halfway, so 2 past summer break. But we've got to go to some Snorefest like Las Vegas.
Snorefest is in no overtaking.
No, just drive fast. There's not that many corners. It's just loads of straights. Yeah. So we've still got Austin. I actually quite like Austin.
I like Austin. Austin's good. Yeah. Mexico is decent, and the amount of fans. What an event! I think. Yeah. I don't really like Interlagos, so I think November's going to be a bit annoying because I don't like Qatar either. And then you've got the Abu Dhabi to finish at the Yas Marina on the 6th of December, so it goes right into December. So yeah, we still got quite a way to go. Another 3 months to go.
Sure, there'll be a big swing, and whatever prediction we've made in this one will be completely wrong by the end of the season.
All right, call it then. So who's winning drivers?
Who's winning the drivers? I think, despite himself, I think Norris will win it. I think
I'll get Norris as well. Yeah,
I think Norris too. Yeah,
and I think that they'll get the world drivers as well. I think they'll get the constructors as well.
I don't think that Charles Leclerc has got enough there to quite pit Max as well, but I actually think he's going to get quite close too. From what I saw this weekend, I think he's kind of fixed his mental problems in executing a race. I didn't think he had that edge previously, but he showed it this weekend. He was flawless. I was really impressed by him.
Yeah, he was also going up against Max Verstappen in one of the best F1 cars ever, and he was still giving him a challenge on some weeks. Like,
yes,
Leclerc is criminally underrated for me. He's probably the fastest qualifier on the, in the 20. If you put them on the same car. And he just, he has some terrible luck as well. Like, driving to the grid in Monaco and his car goes bust and skidding off in his Lagos. Like, he has some of these things that should never happen to him. If you gave Leclerc Red Bull's strategy team, he'd probably be up there like 10 points behind Verstappen. So yeah, he's probably not out of it. He's only 20 points behind
Lando.
Yeah.
So if they quickly at McLaren sort out this Piastri, Norris, number 1, number 2 driver and team orders, Norris is going to be quite comfortable. Because I can't see the swing again happening with the cars. I don't think Red Bull are investing hard for the rest of the season. For 9 races, I don't think they're going to pull it back in terms of development on the car, just for the sake of this year's championship.
Agreed. But I think whatever happens, it'll be a good finish.
Which then kicks them probably into the 2025 season in pole position as well.
Yeah, nothing really changed in 2025. There's no reg changes. I just think we could get a season like the Verstappen Hamilton one, where all the cars are balance and you get your 2 best drivers out there. That would be great.
You're gonna have Leclerc and Hamilton in Ferrari, Norris and Piastri at McLaren, Russell and Antonelli. It's going to be a good season. Just hopefully it's going to be Verstappen and Lawson, but we'll see.
I think this season could have been like an all-timer if Max didn't start the first 9 races the way that he did. Like, the way it is now, it's just like the qualifying's tight, the races are tight, like a bit of strategy goes your right way, rather than last year. Like, you could have the best qualifying, the best strategy of your life. You're not going to beat that Red Bull car. So it's definitely an improvement.
Okay, last sport of the weekend. We won't talk about it much because it's not a major. And it isn't a major, but I think it's supposed to be a big deal. I mean, it certainly makes a lot of money. $19 million.
I was more interested in I'm not sure if you saw it on the Wednesday night, they did a Creator Classic. So they did the back 9 of the Tour Championship course, and they got like the 16 biggest YouTubers out on the course to play a competition. And it brought in, like, it was streamed on YouTube, and it brought in more viewers than Liv were getting. That's how big it was.
Really? I didn't know about this.
Yeah, I sat up until like 1 a.m. on Wednesday night watching it.
Who was playing?
There was a couple of pros who are, so a guy called Wesley Bryan, who's actually won on the PGA Tour, but he's now like a bit of a YouTuber, and his brother George Bryan.
Yeah, I've seen some of that stuff.
Yeah, and then some of the good lads played, like Garrett Clark's probably the biggest name in YouTube golf, and some of the really good guys from Good. And then there just a couple of other influencers and stuff, and the guy called Luke Kwan was on there who won it. But they're still like they did like they do the segments before, and they were asking all the pros like, oh, what do you think these influencers will shoot on the back 9? They're like, oh, no one's going to break 40. If it was 18 holes, they wouldn't break 90. And the winning score was 2 under through 9 holes.
Wow.
So, yeah, they were showing some serious ability. Like, it wasn't just choppers chopping. There was some people chopping it around, but like the coverage was based off who's in the running and who's playing well and stuff. So it was like just a normal broadcast, but with just creators. And they did like a bit of a weird format where they played 8 holes, and then the 4 best scores went and played the 9th hole together as like a knockout.
Did the biggest YouTube golfer play?
Who's that?
Bryson.
Bryson DeChambeau.
No, he was tweeting during it like, "Oh, why am I not there? I'm a YouTuber." Yeah, they sent Peter Finch from the UK went across.
Yeah. So
sides.
Peter Finch, I see some videos pop up from him. The latest one is an hour 40 long video that I've got to watch of his. That is the not leaving the course until I birdie every hole.
God, yeah. Side note, I once went for an interview with Peter Finch, and he's a lovely guy.
You've regaled with that.
That's my claim to YouTube golf. But yeah, the Tour Championship itself, I have a bit of a problem with, just because of how it's structured. Like, Scotty Scheffler does not need a 6-shot head start or whatever it is.
Well, so my view on it is that when they start the Tour Championship finals, that is when they should give the handicap, because I think you should be rewarded for it, but not when you're in the final 30, not when it's the final 4 days.
Yeah, all right, Joel, just to explain it a little bit. So over the whole PGA Tour season, a separate competition in the background runs called the Fedex Cup, and they're ranked through every event they play. They get Fedex Cup points, and then they play 3 competitions at the end of the season. So the first one is the top 75, second one is the top 50, and then the final one is the top 30. And of those top 30 players, they're like seeded. So the best player, number 1 out of the 30, gets a
Starts 10 under.
10 under par, 8 under par, 6 under par, like tiers down.
It should be the other way around, shouldn't it?
No. This is how they win it. So they're given all these stats, like Scotty Scheffler after 2 rounds had like a lead of 7 under par, and they're like, "Oh, this is a new record." It's like, well, he started 10 under. So
Yeah.
So
What I would say is, who actually won the weekend did come second. So Scotty Scheffler was 30 under, but actually he was 20 under. So that's not to be sniffed at, and he would have finished third. So it would have been, by actual scores, Morikawa, Thigala, then Scheffler.
Morikawa and Thigala start from scratch today.
No, they started like they were tiered. So Morikawa was the second best player. So I think he got like 6 under or 7, whatever it was. So he already had a deficit to make up on the best player in the planet.
But Scotty Scheffler must be. So he's starting on 10 under, and the prize money is 9 million.
19 million.
19, yeah. I was going to say he won nearly 25 million in the last few weeks.
BBC's telling me 19 in the headline, and then on the actual thing it says 9.
Oh, it might have been a prize fund then. That may be prize
money,
fund.
9 million,
Yeah, so it's just it's the wrong structure for me. I think I don't mind the seeding, like I think that makes sense. But for me, 32 people and then make it match play. That'd be great.
Yeah. So what it is for me, I like that idea. So I like match play seeding. That's good.
Yeah.
So you can actually have them playing. But I don't mind that the top seeds, you're kind of automatically through to the top 30. So that's your benefit of being higher up on the FedEx Cup rankings. It means some of them you don't necessarily have to play in the top 75 playoff to get into the top 50. You can actually have a rest week.
That wouldn't change that. That would still happen. I just think that, like, imagine going into the World Cup and England are the best seed, so we start every game 3-0 up. Like, how does that make any sense?
Yeah, exactly. So England would go through their qualifying and then get to the tournament and like start in the semis.
Yeah, it's just I get the seeding. I just think it has to go to a knockout round or whatever it is, where there's some jeopardy on the line, where the 32nd or the 30th player in this case has a chance of winning. The 30th player in this case, he started the weekend 10 shots behind. Like, what's he going to do?
What's the point in being there?
He's playing for money.
And you probably then do see it in you then do see it in the scoring. Like you're not engaged, are you? Like you're Matsuyama. And you go first round 70, not a chance. You've then got a deficit. You're 11 shots, 12 shots behind Scheffler after round 1. And he still finished 9th. Like, he still finished tied 9th, Matsuyama, but he was never going to challenge.
Yeah, no, I think I only tuned in. I saw Scotty hit a shank yesterday, and he had a 4-shot lead at that point. I was like, is he shank one? He's going to make double bogey. He made bogey and Morikawa made birdie and made it down to 2 shots. So I was like, this could be an interesting finish. And then Scheffler went birdie, and I was like, okay, right, this is boring. Turn it
so
off.
He's started 10 under and shot 65 in the first round. I mean, what is the point after that?
No, 16th round golf from New York.
Old Jailbird's done well this year, hasn't he? Quite the season.
Yes, quite the season. That man deserves to put his feet up.
It's a year for the biography, for the autobiography, isn't it?
I think for winning the FedEx Cup, he got a $25 million bonus.
Oh my God.
And then whatever he won for winning the competition, which is just mental money. No, there was no need to go to live. He's won.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that the same thing? He didn't have to go, did he?
Silly money.
Yeah. Rory said he's cutting down his golf next year. He's decided he plays too much golf, which he probably does. But
I think that's probably a sign that a deal is coming.
Deal between PJ and Liv.
Yeah, I think that's a sign that he'll play less PJ Tour events, and there'll be whatever crossover events are coming. He'll play, but I think he's been fighting for the PJ so long, and it's took a funny time to say I'm deprioritizing the tour. Like, I feel like someone must be coming for him to say that out loud.
Yeah. Hot take. You heard it here first. Well, if you have enjoyed listening along, like us and subscribe on Spotify. You can get in touch at allsportspods@gmail.com, and we will catch you on the next one. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.